Hi, thanks for joining me today. Are you dealing with an alienating parent, the ex-partner of your now current partner? Subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell and I'll let you know every time I post. Parent alienation is when one parent alienates their child against their other parent. And sometimes that can be alienates them against their other parent and you, the step-parent, or sometimes just you, the step-parent. And what in effect happens is that the child gets put into a very, very difficult situation where they're being asked to be loyal to one parent at the expense of the other. One of the things that happens is that the parent will begin to demand loyalty from their child and withdraw love if the child doesn't give their full support to this parent. Often, only one child of a family will get used in this way. So quite often it's the eldest child who will be alienated most against their other parent. And the alienating parent befriends this child and gives them additional privileges, a closeness, access to more information as a result of being their friend and against their other parent. There's a very unhealthy dynamic that's put in play. So how does a child normally respond to this? Well, they often can't cope. They can't cope with being asked to choose. So often they will begin to reject the other parent, not wanting to visit them, not communicating well with them, withdrawing, because the child can't maintain these two opposing dynamics at once. So it's easier for the child to give up and remain loyal to one parent, for which they get royally rewarded, and cut off their other parent. And that's when the other parent, who is often called the targeted parent, is left completely out of communication with their child. What often happens as well is that the child will repeat what their parent has said. So they use language which isn't age appropriate for them, and they sort of repeat by rote what they've heard their alienating parent say. Or they'll justify it by sort of very black and white thinking, like they'll complain that the targeted parent is bad and wrong in absolutely everything. There isn't a single thing they can say that's good about this other parent. But their parent that they're being aligned to, there can be nothing wrong with what they do, and they're completely right, and they'll completely support them. It's stuff like that which will tell you that your stepchild is being alienated. Now, what can you do about it? Well, there can be lots of sort of stages to this. Your child might be mildly alienated, or there may be difficulty with communication and visits very sporadic, or there could be a cut-off completely, or you could be in the courts. I mean, it is a very large spectrum of what sort of alienation you're talking about. So what can you do if you're finding that your stepchild is being alienated against you? Well, the first thing is to recognise that this is not the child speaking. This is not the child's fault. The child is being put up to this. The child is in a very, very difficult position. So this is not about the stepchild. The stepchild needs a lot of empathy and sympathy for the position they're in. Then I suggest When the child says something that's obviously not true or is just not right or not fair or particularly unpleasant or just basically not right, I would either, if you can, address it at the time in conversation, but do it in a way that says, well, what makes you think that, and how come that's what you say, because where's that come from, because that's plainly not true. So if it's possible to address it at the time, do that. But also, it is worth, if they're saying something that's not true, is just letting it go at the time, and then, you might take care later to explain where they're wrong in something. So supposing they're talking about money and how ungenerous your partner, their parent, is in that respect. And you could possibly just sort of, at another time when you've thought it through, just list down the things that show that your partner isn't being ungenerous. The main thing is not to sort of tell the child to go back and tell their parent that was a load of rubbish, because the child can't do that. But what you're hoping is that the child will think for themselves, well, actually, what my other alienating parent is saying about this is not true, is it? And then they can see that everything their other parent says isn't true on other things as well. A big point is to help your child with their critical thinking. And by critical, I don't mean negative, I mean evaluative. There are plenty of books on this, critical thinking, and how to learn it. It's a great skill, and it's worth helping children in this position develop this skill as soon as possible. And it's about the moment somebody tells you something, instead of you believing it, you question it. So you see a headline in the newspaper and you think, is that true? And often you can do this with the children. You can sort of point to things or advertisements when you're out and about and say, what do you think of that advertisement? Do you think it's true that everybody who drinks that is going to be having a fun time, or everybody who's wearing that is looking cool? I mean, it's whatever the advert is, pick it to pieces. And make a little habit of this so the children begin to question what they're hearing from their parent and can see the other point of view, but not make them go back and put it right, but just so they can understand it for themselves. It's very important, this, because what you're aiming for is to get the child to be able to see your point of view and to understand that their parent isn't always correct. Now, once you've got that, then the child will become much more independent in itself and be able to fight their own corners back with the alienating parent and have an independent view. That independent view is what you're aiming for. Another thing that can really help is before the child goes back to their alienating parent, it can help them enormously if you practice with them what they may have to say about their visit with you. And it might be worth just saying to your stepchild, before they go back, having a conversation about what they might say about their visit, what you did, anything you said, any conclusions, any facts, anything that they may have to repeat to their parent. What are you going to say about our visit to your grandmother? Ask them. And, but help them. Otherwise, they can go back into their other home and simply not be prepared to say what's happened in your house. And the other thing I would say is that if you're dealing with an alienating parent, it's very important that you keep boundaries with that parent strictly. Keep to times, keep to dates, do what you say you're going to do and expect them to do the same, and do not let them get away with any more than you absolutely have to. Some targeted parents have rules around never answering a text unless it's hugely urgent after 7 p.m. at night. And other parents have rules around not answering any texts from an alienating parent for 24 hours. Other parents have rules around one parent will reply to the text, but they won't send it until their other partner has read it. All of this can keep the alienating parent contained and calm as possible. The other thing to remember is to not use your child, your stepchild, as any kind of vehicle for communication, and insist on setting up some kind of communication with the alienating parent that means that communication is dealt with away from the child. So in summary, this is about not blaming the child. The child is stuck. So this is a hugely complex problem. So you're dealing with doing the best you can given the circumstances. We run workshops, sessions, an email response service, and we write booklets. Look at the description box below for links to our social media and website.